The alarms were screaming, lights flashing, computers confirming the unthinkable. Missiles were on their way. In that moment, one man had only seconds to decide. If he was wrong, millions would die. If he was right, no one would ever know. And this is Forgotten Mind, where the stories that changed the world were almost erased from it. It was the height of the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union, standing on the edge of destruction, two superpowers, armed with enough nuclear weapons to end human civilization many times over. Trust didn't exist, only suspicion, only fear. One wrong move, one misunderstanding, and everything would be gone. And deep inside a highly classified Soviet bunker, hidden from the world, a man sat quietly, watching a screen that could end the world. He wasn't a politician, he wasn't a world leader. He was just a duty officer, trained to follow orders, trained to trust the system, a system designed to detect nuclear attacks and respond instantly. Then suddenly, alert, a missile launch detected. Silence turned into chaos. Then another, then another. 5 nuclear missiles, launched from the United States. The system was certain. The computers showed no doubt. This was war. The protocol was simple. Report the attack immediately. No hesitation, no questioning, because the moment it was reported, retaliation would begin. And retaliation meant global nuclear war. Cities would vanish. Millions would die in minutes. Billions would follow. No debate, no delay, no second chances. He stared at the screen. Everything told him this was real. The technology said attack. The system said confirm it. His training said act now. This is what he had been prepared for. Years of discipline, years of conditioning, to respond without emotion. But something didn't feel right. 5 missiles? That wasn't how a real nuclear strike would begin. A real attack wouldn't be limited. It would be overwhelming. Hundreds, not 5. His mind raced. Was this the beginning or a mistake? But this wasn't a guessing game. If he ignored it, and he was wrong, he wouldn't just lose his career, he would be responsible for the destruction of his entire nation, for the deaths of millions, for the beginning of the end of the world. Seconds passed, each one heavier than the last. The room was filled with tension. Other officers watching, waiting for him to do his duty, to report, to confirm, to start the chain reaction that could never be stopped. The world held its breath. And then he made a decision. He did nothing. No report, no escalation, no panic, just silence. A decision, based not on the system, but on instinct, on doubt, on humanity. Minutes felt like hours. Every second could have been the last moment of peace on Earth. And then, the truth emerged. There were no missiles, no attack, no war. The system had failed. A rare alignment of sunlight and high-altitude clouds had tricked the satellite system. A false signal, a glitch. In a machine trusted with human survival. One mistake. That could have ended everything. One moment. One decision. That prevented World War III. You would think a man like this would become a hero, celebrated, honored, remembered forever. But that's not what happened. Because his decision exposed a terrifying truth. The system wasn't perfect, and admitting that was more dangerous than silence. So instead, he was questioned. Why didn't you follow protocol? Why didn't you report it? He had disobeyed the system, even though he had saved the world. There were no medals waiting for him, no headlines, no recognition, just quiet criticism, and a career that would never be the same. But his story didn't begin there. He was born on September 7th, 1939, near Vladivostok, in the Soviet Union, a time when the world itself was already at war. His father was a military pilot. Discipline, duty, and service were not choices. They were expectations. He followed that path, studied engineering, entered the military, joined the Soviet Air Defense Forces, not just as a soldier, but as a specialist, a man trained to understand systems, to analyze, to think, which is exactly why, on that night, he didn't blindly obey. He questioned, and that decision changed history. But life after that moment was far from heroic. The pressure, the secrecy, the lack of recognition, it weighed on him. He eventually left the military, not as a celebrated savior, but as a man quietly pushed aside. His wife became seriously ill. For years, he cared for her, watching her suffer, with limited resources, limited support, and when she passed away, he was left alone. In a small apartment in Fryazino, near Moscow, struggling financially, forgotten by the very world he had saved. Years went by, decades. His story remained hidden, classified, buried in silence. Until finally, the truth began to surface. Former officials spoke, details emerged, and slowly, the world realized how close it had come to total destruction, and how one man, standing in a silent room, chose not to act. Recognition came, but late, very late. He received a few international awards, invitations, acknowledgments, but nothing that could truly match what he had done. Nothing that could return the life he lived in obscurity. He never saw himself as a hero. He called it simply doing his job. But deep down, he knew. And now, so do we. His name was Stanislav Petrov. He died on May 19th, 2017, at the age of 77. Quietly, almost as he had lived, the man who saved the world by doing nothing. And for a long time, the world did nothing for him. If stories like this make you question history, make you feel something deeper, then this is your place. Subscribe to Forgotten Mind, because the next story might be even more unbelievable. And if you want to know more, check the first pinned comment, where the truth behind this story still waits to be explored.